Hello and welcome to The Confident Commit, the podcast for anyone who wants to join the conversation on how to deliver software better and faster.
If you're looking to build a trusted ship, tune in, let's confidently commit.
I'm your host, Rob Zuber, CTO of CircleCI, the software delivery engine for teams that want to ship at AI speed confidently. Today, I'm joined by Loïc Houssier, CTO at Superhuman. Loïc, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, and great job pronouncing my name.
Yeah, no one has to know how much I practiced before we started, but I appreciate that. So let's kind of kick things off. I want to use a little bit of background because I think it really ties into my first question about the AI era and what you all have been doing in AI for so long. So Superhuman was acquired last year by Grammarly. The whole thing is now rebranded as Superhuman. A couple other companies got rolled up into there, but each of you independently were AI companies to some degree, before everybody was an AI company, right? Doing email well, handling email well from the Superhuman side, Grammarly, helping with writing, improving your writing, not just spell check, but really driving that. And so what was it like to be early and then kind of, getting hit by this tidal wave of the whole market coming in? And how does that impact what you're doing today? Does it kind of feel like you're, hey, wait, we were doing this before it was cool? Does that matter? Or does it make you a leader? You really kind of have an edge that other people don't understand? What's so unique about having been in that position before the rest of us honestly got here?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's a tale of two cities. So on one side, Grammarly was kind of like the OG AI company. Clearly, I would say being really strong on NLP. So I would say from the get-go, that was their bread and butter for quite a long time. And very successful at that, incredibly successful, I should say. And seeing the rise of AI and the rise of new tools bringing, I would say, more capabilities on the market, more companies trying to eat their lunch. And at the same time, Superhuman, on our side, we were, I would say, more like a startup-ish company built on top of Gmail and Outlook and providing an AI native experience on top of it. For us, it was much more us, Superhuman Mail, it was much more like a reaction and an enabler, holy cow, this is coming, this is crazy, type of things we wanted to do for so many years. Oh my God, now this is, I would say, possible. That was kind of the first reaction. And the second reaction was wow, everybody can do it now. Not only us, not only with our background, everybody can basically do an average product pretty fast. So it reinforced a couple of things. One, reinforced the fact that we were pretty well positioned in this market because we were coming from there. And second, our appetite for strong UX, strong design, strong, I would say, effort put into the user experience is something that AI is not good at. AI is great to bring you to zero to average product working, which is great. But from average product to delightful experience, there's still a world, I would say, to be there. And as much as I value the rise of AI and the what it can provide, that's the edge. That's really the moat, is companies able to bring, I would say, a delightful experience and not the technology. And for Grammarly, they built with that NLP AI, I would say, history, they were able to build, for one, a household name. They are present, almost every student is using Grammarly to help them with their essays and all of that, because it's much more convenient than using an LLM on the side. You're working on your Google Doc, you're working on your Microsoft Word, you're working into whatever the system. Grammarly works everywhere and follow the student where they are typically. And they build this I work everywhere as a really significant, I would say, edge compared to the market. If you think about the competition and all the people doing AI, the Anthropic of the world, the OpenAI of the world, you have to get there, do your stuff, and then come back where you work. And where you work can be, I don't know, Google Doc. It can be like ServiceNow for the IT professionals. It can be like Salesforce. Having Grammarly, being consistent and knowing basically your context, where you work, is an edge. So I think for both companies, Superhuman Mail and Grammarly, now Superhuman Corp, I would say the rise of AI is more like an enabler than a threat. It is a threat, but like we are all working in tech. Like there's a new threat every day anyway, because like startups are raising money to eat our lunch anyway. So I think it's good. It's a good, I would say, positive pressure that we got and reacting with our strength.
Yeah, I love that point about the UX, right? And it's probably true of many different things. Like it's easy to get to a level, right? But then to really differentiate, like it pushes you to go that extra mile. And that might be in different categories. Like if user experience is your thing, then that's where you're going to really invest, right? And it might be different capabilities, it might be different aspects, but getting to average gets easier. Which pushes us. I mean, I think I can't speak for everyone, but many people like to be in this industry because we like to really push the envelope, right? So great. Now I have the opportunity to really push and differentiate in a particular spot. And also interesting to hear kind of like the difference between two organizations in terms of, where they were at and how they responded. So probably gives you a collectively really interesting context that you can share across, this is what it looks like if you're a small startup trying to figure this out. This is what it looks like if you've already got some established base, or whatever. And so in this wave of adoption, sort of got this, like, one that enables the product, right? But also you've got an engineering organization. I think one of the things that is on everyone's mind right now is, how do we deliver faster? Obviously the SDLC, I'll say obviously, I think anyone listening to this probably knows the SDLC is changing pretty significantly. And so it's shifting, and engineering leaders are thinking, how do I create productivity and delivery? But also, to your point, not just do something mediocre everywhere. Like where do I keep my focus? And so what does that journey look like for you and your team as, more tools have become available? Your competitors are moving faster than maybe they have in the past, but with a singular focus, or with focus on, really differentiating for your customers. Like, what does it look like to get folks using these tools? How do you grow adoption? How do you get people to see the success, et cetera?
Yeah. So maybe my first reaction is like we hire product engineers. So we filter for people that have like a strong appetite for the user experience. And even for backend engineer, when we do the interview, when you do like a system design interview, if you don't, I would say, talk about the user and the impact on the user of latency or like whatever, that would be like somewhat a red flag that would be hard to overcome with your core skills. So pretty much everyone is a product engineer, thinking I would say about the experience and all. So AI is just seen as a way to get rid of the clutter and the work that is not that much interesting, so that you can focus on the experience and spending more time thinking, iterating, or like providing multiple examples of the same interaction with like a small animation here, maybe like something there. So I think this is where AI is helpful, like making sure we spend more time on those like highly valuable, I would say, moments. In terms of adoption, it's really interesting because I joined Superhuman in early 2025, and like every like new CTO, you come and the mandate is like, hey, you need to bring this team from, I would say, A to B, B to C, and like always, I would say, raising the bar, always like getting more velocity. And at that time, of course, AI was like top of mind. Everyone was using Copilot and all of that. But you start, I would say, at that time, we're starting to have like Codex, I would say, kicking in, like the first version of Codex. You had Cursor, of course, and some of those like Lovable. And the first thing that we've done is like removing the red tape. We were a startup. To some extent, we don't have all the processes that established companies have. So it's fairly easy to just say, you know what? I don't care if you get 1, 2, 3, 10 subscription. Take them all. try things out.
Yeah.
So removing the red tape was the first step, and people were like, oh, damn, so I can try pretty much anything, and it's fine if like for 2 or 3 days I don't use that one, and I don't have the CFO coming on my back to make sure that I use the right number of these licenses. That was the first piece, kind of like the stage 1 of our adoption curve. And stage 2, so that was Q1 last year. And in Q2, we decided to kind of like standardize a bit. Based on the learnings, based on what we've seen, we've created like an AI guild. So like taking, I would say, some of the most proficient and fluent people, kind of like the ones that are easy to like early adopters and all of that, talking to each other, sharing what's working, sharing what's not exactly mature right now, and building a process where we can like month after month reassess things. Because one thing that was not working last month can work now, surprisingly. And we've seen that with like Opus 4.5, 4.6, like boom, like almost every week you have something that is different. I was also a bit tricky in the sense that I decided to use my most senior engineer in the organization. That was initially a bit of a detractor. Let's call it like a pragmatic. He wants to see things working before getting the excitement. So he was not exactly the most excited person about AI compared to maybe like more junior people that were already like saying that, wow, this is changing the world and everything. But he got the respect from the team because of his seniority and the work that he was providing. And diving into it, he completely changed his mind. He's like, holy cow, there's definitely some areas where this is useful. So people were like, oh, damn. If he's saying that, there's something. So creating like this, I would say, moment and kind of like a how shit moment. Like if Mike is doing it, we better be on it. Type of approach. So this is how we started, and since then we try like every opportunity to, I would say, allow people to get like new subscription. We don't care, like cost. Something will, I would say, if we use too much of those tools, that's a great problem to have. So like I don't want to preemptively stop people from using those tools.
Yeah, I love I was going to say the social element, we'll call it the cultural element in that in that view. Like I've been laughing for as long as I've been a CTO, and probably before that, all the technical problems I was excited to solve are actually just people problems, right? Like it's about how do I get this organization to do the thing, not, what is the technology? I got 1 million people that can sort out the technology. And so understanding who the players are and what influence they have in your organization is just a really smart way to think about the problem. Yeah. So, and I think that perspective, I've heard sort of both. So I'm curious about this. We've kind of gone back and forth on the perspective, of like just use whatever you want, right? We want to make sure that you have a tool that works for you, et cetera. And what we found is for some folks, that's great. They love the freedom. And for some folks, they're like, but which one should I use? Right? Like, and how should I use it? Like, tell me, I don't want to figure this all out for myself, right? Yesterday, I was super productive because I had my hotkeys all dialed. I know exactly building Superhuman Mail, I'm pretty sure you've got folks who are super into like tuning the experience, right? And knowing all the hotkeys and working really quickly. I mean, for anyone who's listening to this and hasn't used Superhuman Mail, like that's the deal, right? Like I can be so much faster. And now you're telling me I got to learn a whole new toolkit, right? And you're telling me to do whatever you want. I don't even care. And we've had a lot of those folks say, can you please just tell me exactly how to do this? Because I just want to set up the hotkeys and get great results. And it's like, well, it's a little bit of a journey and you're going to have to learn some things and whatever. Have you seen that side of it at all?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And it's okay. And you need, I would say, even like when you look, I have gray hair. And I remember like when I started my career, like we were using Eclipse, and Eclipse was like receiving a ton of like plugins, and everyone was like setting their own configuration. And you always have those people who are like, hey, give me a config that is good enough because I don't want to tweak my plugins and everything. So it was the case like 10, 15 years ago. Well, probably like 15 or 20 now. And it's still the case now. What we've done is exactly like taking that into consideration. You have those people that will reassess their setup like every weekend. because every weekend there's someone on Twitter that is like sharing their own setup, their own set of skills, their own set of like, I would say tricky ways or like or fancy ways to use Cloud Code especially. So you have those guys and you want to rely on those people to frame a golden path so that the people that are not as interested, or maybe they don't have the time really, to, I would say, apply a golden path. So what we've done is creating the space one. So like every quarter in Mail, we have this quality week. So we start the quarter with 1 week that is not focused on the roadmap. It's 1 week where the only challenge is to tackle as many bugs as you can. And we make it fun. It's kind of like incentive driven. So like the people that solve the most, you get a reward. The people that solve like the bug with like the best reach, like the number of users that you've impacted, you get the reward. So you get those rewards. But it's a week where you don't have the cognitive load or the pressure to deliver a feature for the market. So this is a week where you can take a step back, think about your own setup and how to improve it. And we started the week, so it was last week. We started the week with Mike, my chief architect, basically, showing his setup. This is one way to use Cloud Code. And if you're part of that cohort of people where you don't want to tweak yourself, just reuse. And then we finished the week like with some demos or like the fanciest or like I would say like craziest way to use Cloud Code internally, and we'll rinse and repeat. And every quarter we'll do like hey, this is the new baseline for people that are kind of like a bit shy on changing stuff too often. This is the new baseline. Please upgrade, and you can deliver on your quarter.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. I think that one of the challenges a lot of folks have had, I mean, I sort of said like, I know my keystrokes, I just want to use my keystrokes or whatever, is this overwhelming sense that like, I want you to explore these new tools, but I also want you to deliver on your commitments for Wednesday. You know what I mean? And then it's like, I'm going to do like
most of the time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I'm going to do the thing that's predictable, right?
Exactly.
Not the thing. And innovation is all, can I step away from the predictable and find an order of magnitude return? And if you don't give people permission, so as you described with the week of kind of just use the tools to try something different, let's knock down some bugs. It's not super high pressure. Everyone's kind of having some fun, but if you get to the top of the leaderboard, that's cool. Whatever that is, like just create that environment. I think that is one of the challenges. Certainly I hear from a lot of different organizations, just, yeah.
And I would say another way we've started, but like that was like earlier last year, I was like, you're not trusting it to ship code or like to modify your code. That's fine. Focus on, I would say, the other stuff that you're doing as an engineer, like summarizing documents, like you do some interviews, just use a note taker and extract, like play around with that outside of the pure code so that you feel comfortable that, damn, that's cool. Like that's actually useful in those areas. And even like you can use, like I use Cloud Code, I would say, I ship some PRs, but like I use Cloud Code mostly as like an assistant now. And like with like different MCPs plugged like pretty much everywhere. I use it in so many different ways, and I share that with other engineers. Like there's so many different ways that we can like improve the productivity of an engineer's code. To some extent, it's not the most important part. But like everything that is coming before, like building the context, understanding like the code base that you're working with. Cloud Code and the equivalent are so great at, I would say, summarizing the overall context and helping you getting set up and understanding where you want to go. That's the part that I want to accelerate.
Yeah, I think it's a great call out because it's easy to get a little myopic about what we do as engineers, right? Like we write code. Yeah, there's like 85% of our week is not spent doing that, but we write code, so I'll apply the tools to the code, right? And then sort of you get these questions, this doesn't seem to be the bottleneck. Why are we focusing on this? Like, well, what is? And could you solve that problem, right? Although one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I don't know if you've witnessed this, and I'd love your take, is that like I love the theory of constraints and sort of attacking the bottleneck, and who in our industry hasn't read the Phoenix Project, whatever. But we've changed the economics of writing code so significantly that maybe the process isn't right anymore. A lot of time is spent trying to figure out what the right thing is to build because building is expensive. But if building is super cheap, right? Can I build a few things and just put them in front of customers, right? Like the whole kind of process of negotiating where we're going to prioritize and et cetera, kind of, it just becomes a different take. Have you witnessed any of that transition inside Superhuman?
So it's interesting because I'm in the process of basically segregating my SDLC. So you were talking about SDLC, but I'm segregating my SDLC based on the knowledge that we have, knowledge on the technology side, but knowledge on the market side. There's always some incubation that you want to do and you want to try things out. Superhuman is highly qualitative. Like perceived quality is probably our top brand name. Like if people think about us, they think about like the quality, and they pay a ton like to get access to that quality and then this productivity. So when we ship something, it better be good. It's kind of like a luxury, I would say, car. Like you expect everything to just work. So our tendency was to always bring or surfacing new features, always top notch. Kind of like the Apple mindset. It needs to work. It needs to be perfect. But right now, like we have customers that are asking like, hey, just bring me MCPs. Just bring me like the latest version of the model. Let's bring me. And then all of a sudden you have like hacks, potential, and all of that. And you need to be like somewhat careful. So we're working on like identifying where we can take some risk from a perceived quality standpoint, iterate with selective like group of people. At the end of the day, it's not groundbreaking. Like reusing our beta or VIP like champions, bringing them like some version of the product. But we had this very habit to harness everything that we're doing. And in this world, we need to do that faster. So we are adopting that the SDLC for that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So like really understanding what I heard in there was, which part of your customer base you can move really quickly with, how they perceive sort of freshness and novelty relative to quality and stability. I mean, certainly I could say at CircleCI, we're in a business of quality and stability. Like that's what we sell. But there are parts of our product, which is another way of looking at it, right? Parts of our product where we have lots of room to innovate and do novel things. And then parts of our product where the expectation is, absolutely rock solid kind of thing. And I would imagine like, do I get my email versus can I search it in this new and novel way, or can I craft a new email in this new and novel way with a better model or whatever? Like those are different, right? Deliverability.
You need to see the email at all. Yeah. Like if the email is basically asking you to send an update, maybe you don't have to interact with it, and maybe the update can be shared automatically. So, and one thing that is like probably like very impressive right now is that the rate of innovation and the expected, I would say, changes that are coming. Typically, like when you were like running an org, you had like what you know about your customer, what they want, and what they don't know they want, which is like the pure innovation space, like disruptive innovation. I think it was fine to have like 10%, 20% of like disruptive innovation, but you need to, I would say, to take care of your customers. In our world right now, like the way we interact with software generally is completely changing. So even the way we surface a feature is changing like completely. So I expect those ratio to kind of like be reversed, and like the disruptive innovation to be like the core aspect of the roadmap versus what we know people want being like the remaining 20% and shrinking, because people don't know what they don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. And this is why it's exciting right now, because there's like Cloud Bart, like when you like OpenBart now, but when you and it's like when it would be aired, probably like the name will change again. But you see the way people are thinking about potentially interacting is becoming Jarvis more and more. So like, how do we like builders of SaaS software or like consumer application, how do we embrace this change and like in terms of like interaction? This is where it gets tricky, because you have less and less certainty about what you build, and it's changing the way you ingest the user feedback, what you take of it. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Well, I love that you call that out in terms of like, I think you said if you have a status update email or whatever, like why would I even interact with that? And one thing I'm super fascinated by, I said before we started that I was in email in like 2000 sort of thing. A lot has changed, how we communicate, kind of the core platforms, how people connect with each other. And so I'm curious, one, just how that's evolved and how that impacts what you do at Superhuman, and then two, where you see that going next. I mean, is my inbox just going to be bots emailing each other sort of thing? Like what is the evolution of this, and what role do you think you end up playing in that?
No, so that's the key question. Mm-hmm. That's the key question. I mean, emails, they've been around since 1970 something. They're still there. They're still there. And if you're a founder, you're still running your company in emails. And so it's really interesting how this is not changing, how this is still the place where everything is converging, your notification, everything's going there. And nothing has replaced email for real. Sure, for collaboration, I would say internally we have Slack and Teams and those equivalent, but everything that is across organization still relies on email. So that's really interesting. Coming to your point, we still feel that the human should be in the loop. We still feel that for the important part of your business, you want to act. You want to make the decision to reply X or Y or Z. And for some stuff, maybe you don't need to. So there will be a strong segregation and an important categorization of emails where this deserves to be shown to you. Even if we know what you will reply, because we have the context, and this is the third time in a row that you've been asked this question, we know your answer, and we know your voice and tone, and we know the update because MCP, whatever, we know what's going on. Let us reply. We do think that it will be let us prepare the reply. And you have an easy way to basically say that reply versus that reply. And for some stuff, probably you don't, I would say you won't interact with things the same way. I will give you one example. It's already happening to me. I subscribe to a lot of Substack or newsletter. That's my way to keep in touch with everything that's going on top of X. But that's the way I use to consume content asynchronously, take a step back and make sure that I understand what's going on in the world. I used to review all, my Substack and all of that, and then you missed 1 week, and wow, it's becoming hard to track. What I've done now is with Superhuman, I just auto-archive everything. I keep everything, but I auto-archive. And every Friday, I'm just asking my inbox, give me a summary of my, weekly Substack. What is really important? And so you can see that I still have the content. I don't interact with it directly. I have basically an agent that is surfacing what is really interesting. And if I want to deep dive, I go to the source email, and then I go to the source of the content. So the way I interact already with email is different. And for sure, quoting my French president, for sure, I would say I foresee significant changes in the next 3 to 4 or 5 months.
So one last question on that thread, and then I'm going to start getting into the wrap. But you reminded me of, the early, I'm going to quote, I don't know if this is really a competitor, but, lots of your customers, I'm sure, use Gmail. And within Gmail, you have AI assistants. And one of my first or early interactions with Gemini as an assistant in my email was it summarizing an email thread. And I guess it felt a lack of closure. So it invented the end of the email thread. And the end was not good. The end induced panic for me, but it was completely fabricated, right? It was it predicted what the next email would be and what would happen in that email sort of thing. And so there's a really important question in here, I think, about trust, right? I will take the weekly summary if I feel really confident that that's a good and accurate weekly summary. If it's going to be, making up stuff about what happened, then it causes me heartache and stress and more work in the end. So how do you bring trust to the center of that experience? And how do you think about that from a product perspective and then from an engineering perspective? Yeah.
And I would say generally the perceived quality of the product is something that we care about. The first challenge that we faced was some of the features rely on user prompts. They can prompt, define the category of emails that you will put in that split. Kind of defining a label by a prompt. The problem with that is the quality of the outcome depends on the quality of your prompt. And that was the first time where we were holy cow, the quality is not on us anymore. It's also on the user. So that was something to accept. AI brings a lot more capabilities and risk into the, I would say, the end of the user. And while capturing intent with LLM is easier than ever, it's I would say harder to capture that from the end user, or it highly depends on the way they write their prompts. On the second aspect that you're talking, we're spending a ton of time on evals. We are not perfect whatsoever, but we try to think about quality in terms of dimensions. So what you call is closure. Is the LLM fine with closure or lack of, and trying to trick it with our evals to see if it will basically invent something. There's a lot of dimensions like this that we put evals for, but it's tough. It's tough. And every new model that will be coming, holy cow, Opus 4.6 is coming, a bit longer, and we use, I would say, some of that for our agentic framework. You have new subtleties that is coming, and you have some users coming back to us and hey, what the hell? This is so wrong. And you're yeah, oh, shoot. So you take it and you try to improve the system globally. But to your point, at the end of the day, it's a question of ROI. So how much it makes you faster versus how much you have some foolish moment or oh shit moment when you look at a summary that is plain wrong and your heart basically was going crazy for some seconds. It's tough. It's tough, but I think that the Pandora box is open now, and it's just a matter of time for when it will be really good enough that everyone will feel comfortable with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it feels like something that you as an organization can add as value, right? Because without that, right, without the expectation that I'm using Superhuman because they're putting quality in their time and their energy, I'll just get Claude to write my emails, which I think would be a novel experience to say the least. I think
this is the place where we have an edge compared to, we're a small team and we fight against Gemini, and Gemini is doing a good job. I'm fairly impressed with the work they've been doing, on Gmail, especially lately. They're doing a good job, but never they would be as laser focused on, I would say, our market, which is the knowledge workers. Gmail, they focus on my daughter as much as they focus on my mom. So the spread in terms of coverage is huge, and you need to appeal for all that population. Yeah. We target a very tiny population compared to that, which is pretty let's say knowledge workers are spending a lot of time on their emails. So it's easy for us to be a bit more specific and better from a quality standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. All right. I'm going to make the transition. You were the one that joked about your gray hair, being in this for a really long time. Obviously still a deep passion for engineering and building great product, but let's go back to the beginning. How did you first know that you were an engineer?
That's interesting. So my first, I don't have a CS degree. I graduated in math, and I was supposed to do a PhD back in the days. And I did my first 3 months, which is mostly getting understanding the context of your, I would say, field and everything. And after 3 months, I was holy cow, that's not for me. Not for me. Too deep. Only one topic, not enough diversity. And I was doing that in I would say, research lab at what we called at the time France Telecom, which is now called Orange, the telco company. And it was a security lab. And I went to basically the lab director, and I say, well, the PhD is not for me, not for my brain, not for my do you have anything else? I was people are working on security around here. So that guy is working on Outlook. Funny enough, that was my first interaction. That guy is working on USB tokens, small HSM, the hardware security modules. Trying to make that work together. I was that's the mandate? Yeah, you have 3 months. And if you do something cool. So I got to meet with the guy working on Outlook, the guy working on those security USB tokens. And I played with C++, DLLs and the Microsoft ecosystem to do some security fun stuff around email and security of emails at the time. And I had a blast. Like for 3 months, I was like, that's so cool. I can do some really crazy things compared to what I was doing before, which was a lot of like whiteboarding and metrics and all of that, which in retrospect, I might have, I would say, enjoyed a bit more and working in the AI industry maybe later. But it was a blast. It was a blast. I mean, that was the beginning.
I love it. Well, speaking of, what you need to know now, I mean, like the linear algebra apparently is really important, and we all should have maybe paid more attention. I actually also didn't do CS. I did engineering physics, the linear algebra, tensor calculus, all part of my my undergrad. I didn't really keep it up. So, I'm having to catch up on a little bit of it now. The other thing that I think is really interesting about that, though, is you highlighted like this cross-disciplinary, like there's a hardware thing, an email thing. I'm doing some software, some hardware, and that was engineering. And I think now, right, we're sort of reevaluating the entire model of how we deliver software in ways that I think having multidisciplinary experience, being able to draw on other things that we've solved in engineering in other worlds is really interesting because we're pushing the envelope so much and it's not just crafting software anymore. And so I think it's another great time to be excited about broader quote unquote engineering and not just CS. You sort of open with, well, I didn't do CS, but like to me, engineering is not CS. Engineering is engineering. Like we create things. So you talked a lot about product engineers, right? I'm creating an outcome for my user. Yeah. And being able to draw on other experiences. I don't know if those, the hardware modules will be the thing that gets you there, but being able to draw on that broad set of experiences will give you great ideas to kind of come up with the next innovation.
And it's interesting because to my engineers, like when I work with them, I always quote like this time of my career where I spent some time working on submarines and like the maintenance of those like French Navy boats. So I spent 1 year outside of the software industry altogether. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. But that was probably the most transformative experience that I had because all of a sudden you need to do still some sort of like a leadership exercise, but damn, you don't have the skills anymore. Like, Of course, I don't know anything about like a torpedo system. Of course, I don't know anything about like a radar system, but I still need to help those teams work to do a better job. So you have to reassess your own ways, your own influence model and all of that. And coming back to the math, it's all about abstracting things you learn in one field that you can reuse in other fields. So doing stuff with a lot of variety helps your brain being so much adaptable to whatever new things is coming. AI is coming. I mean, to me, I was like, cool, another thing to learn, another word where I can apply whatever pattern I've seen in my career compared to being stuck too much on the ground. And I would say losing the opportunity to take a step back. Yeah. If you take this opportunity to take a step back, AI is just like an enabler, which is like amazing.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. Lots of change. It can be a little unnerving, but also, as you said, just so much to learn. Well, thank you, Loïc. This has been amazing. Thanks, it's been a delight to have you on. Thanks to everyone who's listening. If there's someone you want us to interview, something you want me to talk about, probably find me on LinkedIn. That's the most likely place to get my attention. But we're always looking to have great conversations with great people about what's happening in the industry. And of course, like and subscribe on your podcast provider of choice to find out when there's more episodes. Thanks again. This has been absolutely amazing.
Thanks, Rob.